Hi, folks. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D. for the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. Let's get rolling. I'm sure this is no surprise to anyone and that you've all heard the story already, but Biden is out. What happens now? Well, as I'm sure you also know, Joe Biden has endorsed Kamala Harris as the vice president. So have Bill and Hillary Clinton. Barack Obama has not. He wants to wait to see the process play out at the Democratic National Convention. Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer have both said that they are standing down, meaning that they will not challenge Kamala Harris since she was endorsed by Biden. Some sources are referring to Kamala Harris as a sacrificial lamb because she is trailing Trump, not significantly, but enough to lose. And it is pretty consistent. And there are some people who have said that if Kamala Harris drops out of the race, that they will support Trump. Those are Republicans. That should not be of any surprise to anybody. But we don't know. I saw a campaign commercial conducted by Kamala Harris. It was a good commercial. It put her in a positive light. It pointed out all of the problems with former President Donald Trump. It did not really have any direct statement on what Kamala Harris would do. It was mostly an anti-Trump commercial, but the rest will come. It is much too early to say. It is day one of the Kamala Harris for President campaign. And anybody who thinks that they know what will happen is either lying to you or self-deluded. Nobody can possibly know. What the polls say now is irrelevant. They are based upon the situation on the ground when Joe Biden was still running for president. Now, if Kamala Harris expects to win, she definitely needs to brush up on her style. Her style has not been that good in many cases. She has made a lot of flubs. Currently, she is ranked about the same in the polls as Joe Biden, but for that matter, so is Donald Trump, ranked at about that same level. There are only single points separating them from each other, but those single points can make a big difference when it comes to presidential elections. Needless to say, no one can say what will happen because the future is not yet written, to use the expression. Past is not prologue. And no, history does not repeat itself. The expression, but it rhymes, even that I am somewhat skeptical of. Maybe sometimes it rhymes and sometimes it does not. I am not willing to make any statement like that about the future. Anything that is not grounded in empirical evidence. The only empirical evidence we have right now, again, are the polls, and the polls right now in July are irrelevant. We have a long time to go until November. Now, in many respects, that may seem like a long time. In many respects, that might seem like a short time. It depends on what you're looking at. But in presidential races, that is an infinity. 3 months, 3.5 months is a really long time. And so who gets elected as president of the United States in November is anyone's guess. Now, if the election between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris were held today, it appears virtually certain that Donald Trump would be elected. But the election is not being held today. There was one more scheduled debate, as I mentioned in a previous episode, between Trump and Biden. Now that Biden is out, all bets are off. No one knows whether there will or will not be any more debates. Certainly, I would imagine that Kamala Harris would like there to be. Whether Trump would like there to be is anyone's guess. And I am only surmising about what I think Kamala Harris would like, because I think that she would want the opportunity to stand up against Trump and to directly challenge him, not just to challenge him indirectly in campaign commercials. So we'll have to see what happens in that respect. I was surprised when I heard this thing about Biden leaving. I woke up and immediately I called my friend Steve, and we had a long conversation, about an hour, about some totally unrelated subject matter. And then at the end of the conversation, Steve said to me, "So what do you think about the latest political news?" And I said, "Has something happened?" And he said, "Yes, Biden has left." And I was startled, not really surprised, but startled. I mean, many people had predicted that he would step down today, but people have been predicting that for a while, and he has not done that. And Biden has said over and over again that he would not step down. The problem for Biden is that he has lost the support of the majority of powerful Democrats in the Congress. And that is not a good position to be if you are running for president of the United States, or in this case, rerunning for president of the United States. So, did Biden have any choice? Well, he had a choice, but the choice was really not that good for him. I think he realized ultimately that he had to step down. I mean, his dementia is getting bad, but it's not that bad. And I know what that bad is. I saw it in my father when my father was on the dementia floor in the assisted living facility he lived in. I saw many people even worse than him. This one guy who basically stood at attention or sat down with his eyes facing straight ahead. He literally could not talk. I was told that he was a very nice, eloquent, friendly guy before he got dementia, or perhaps Alzheimer's, I don't know. But he was not that man at that time. My father never quite got to that level before he died. Biden might. I hope he doesn't. As you may know, because I've mentioned it before, Ronald Reagan did. As Nancy Reagan said on Larry King Live, Ronnie doesn't recognize me anymore. I hope that does not happen to Joe Biden. That would be a tragedy for his wife and for his family. A tragedy maybe isn't even a strong enough word, a catastrophe, to have your own husband or father not recognize you, not be able to tell who you are, basically just sitting down, motionless perhaps, and not able to communicate with you. I hope that does not happen. As I always said to my sister when we were still in communication, I wished that our father had died 3 years earlier, and she agreed, because then he would not have had to live through his horrible dementia. And he knew he had dementia. He knew it because he kept on repeating the word dementia over and over again, just like Joe Biden keeps on repeating Zionist over and over again. So I do not fault Joe Biden for what he did. I also do not support Joe Biden. I do not support Donald Trump. In fact, I support no one because I am a communist. More specifically, I am a Maoist third worldist. I am also a Bhaskarian critical realist. I am also a kyriarchist. I am also an intersectional Marxist. And so because I am a Marxist, because I am a communist, there is nobody who is running for office, or at least has any chance of winning that office, who could do anything that I would like. Say a communist got elected. Let's say, for the sake of imagination, a thought experiment. What could that communist do? That communist would have to contend with Congress. That Congress would not be made up of communists. It would be made up primarily of Republicans and Democrats. So politics is not the solution to the problems which ail us. The only solution, I think, is the collapse of the capitalist world system. And that is a system which even people as far to the left or the leftish as Bernie Sanders supports. And so because I do not support capitalism, because I do not support American imperialism, because I do not support Pax Americana, the Monroe Doctrine, anything which elevates the United States above other countries in the world, and because I recognize that the United States is basically in control of what happens in the modern world. The United States is the head of the beast, of the empire, and of the first world, and consequently of the world at large. And nobody that I know of can take that away from the United States. And so we will have to see what happens. Do I have a favorite? Not really. Now, I have somebody, I guess you could say, is a least favorite. So maybe that's the same as saying I have a favorite, but not really. And that would be Donald Trump, because he is a classical fascist. I mean, a Mussolini-style fascist. As far as I know, Kamala Harris is not. But Kamala Harris is a generic Democrat. She has nothing to offer me. And in my opinion, she has nothing to offer the United States, or for that matter, the world at large. And so, yeah, I can say that I despise Trump. I can say that I really don't care about Kamala Harris. So maybe that means I do not support Trump that much. Maybe that means I support Kamala Harris a little bit more, but that's not true. I don't support either one of them. When I say I don't support Trump, what I mean is I despise him. I despise him for being a fascist. That alone is not enough for me to support Kamala Harris. She is not a communist. She is not a revolutionary, and she can only lead us in the direction of where she is right now. And that direction is not one that I want to go in. And so we will see in the coming days, weeks, and months how this will unfold, whether the polls will change, whether they will go in a direction more favorable to Kamala Harris, or whether they will remain in a direction more favorable to Donald Trump. And again, nobody can predict that. Not now. It is much, much too soon. You cannot base Kamala Harris's present poll numbers on anything else than her present poll numbers. You cannot say that she will not win the election because her present poll numbers are low. You can't say that. Well, you can, but I think you'd be wrong, because Kamala Harris is a new presidential candidate. Depending upon how she does, she will either win or lose, or as one writer said, She may be a sacrificial lamb until the next time we have a presidential election in over 4 years. And then there may be an opportunity for a change, assuming the United States, assuming the first world is even around. And I am not convinced that is true. For the time being, this has been Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. Have a pleasant day and an even better day tomorrow.